Okay, greetings everybody. I've had several people ask me about how I make my sock masks. Now, a sock mask basically is a mask that can be quickly made with a prosthetic or what have you. It's not something that you. This is for something with for somebody with absolutely no sculpting skills. Somebody who obviously is not willing to sculpt and mold and cast and all that business to make their own whole mask and or facial prosthetic. Now, these videos will be done in a series simply because there's a lot of dry times, this kind of thing. So, I mean, this would be a really huge video if it was all in one. Okay, so the first video is going to be basically things that you're going to need in order to pull this project off. Now, I'm probably going to be showing off some things that not everybody has. All I can say is acquire those things. Otherwise, all I can say is this is how I do it. This is how I make a sock mask. We'll maybe get into how to make prosthetics or full-on sculpting and or ball caps or whatever, how to make those later. But this is strictly how to make a sock mask. Okay, now with that being said, if you're still tuned in, this particular intro video is simply but the items that you will need. Okay, now at the end I'm also going to hold up well, I'll go ahead and hold it up now, actually, too. This right here is going to be a listing of the various websites that you can use. Okay, now I'm local here to Atlanta. So the engineer guy, the top one here, you can order your latex, a lot of your paints and stuff from them as well. But the bottom line is, if you're local here to Atlanta, then I would recommend going there because you'll save a lot on shipping because, let's face it, all liquids have some weight to it. Now, the monstermakers.com, I still buy a lot of my paint from these guys. However, they're located all the way up in, I want to say that's Cleveland, Ohio. So needless to say, when you're ordering from them, especially during the winter, they won't even send your paint out if the temperatures are below freezing because they don't want your product to freeze. So that you got to kind of keep in mind when you're ordering from them. However, do keep in mind the engineer guy carries a lot of Monster Maker products, such as Monster Clay. They carry the latex paint colorants, but they don't actually carry the pre-mixed paint. They carry a lot of what you'll need. I'd recommend, if nothing else, if you're interested in this, the engineer guy there near the airport, man, I'm telling you, it's like Home Depot for us, okay? Now, if you're obviously going to go forward with making a sock mask and that kind of thing, I figured that you're probably going to want to know where to get prosthetics or such as that. Now, the Drop Dead Productions is located here in town. However, they don't have a storefront. I do know that they have some really awesome foam latex prosthetics over there where you can really make some killer sock masks. And the prices are reasonable too, at like $40 a piece. Now, Norcosco down here, there's a place there in Atlanta. It's called Atlanta Costume and Norcosco. It's located there in Atlanta, like right off of Ponce, kind of. Now, they have ball caps, they have makeup. They don't really have any of your mask making needs, but they do have the ball caps. So does the engineer guy. But I figured I'd add Norcosco just because when the engineer guy doesn't have what I need, that's where I go next is Norcosco. Otherwise, I generally make my own prosthetics. On occasion, I will order some from Drop Dead Productions. But Monster Makers, definitely keep them in mind. They have how-to videos there as well. But all of that kind of stuff is generally on sculpting and all. But the engineer guy is where I get a lot of my stuff. So I'll show this again at the end of the video. Do keep in mind that as I'm calling off these things in my next bit of prattling, that this is where I'm talking about, okay? And directions, if you're local and you want to go to these places, all of the directions on how to get there can be found on their website. Okay, now let's move forward. Now, as far as what you're going to need, all right, that's what this video is about. You don't really need a rotating turntable, if you will, but I find that it makes the job a lot easier. It certainly makes the job a lot easier. So that's always cool. You're going to need an armature, a good head armature. This particular one is 23 centimeters around, and my head is roughly 23 centimeters around. So needless to say, when you make a mask on it, it fits me really nice. Armatures that you would buy like this to make a mask on, I know that well, Monster Makers has them. I think theirs is a 23. They also have a ladies armature, which is obviously a little smaller. But I think CFX, that's a silicone mask company, but I think they have quite a selection of armatures as well, even though they're not listed on my website listing that I gave you. At Engineer Guy, there's a fella there that the guys at Engineer Guy can put you in contact with. His name is Matt Green. Now, he makes a pretty good armature as well, but I find that the neck's a little narrow, and I don't like having the blood cut off to my head, so to speak. But that's an armature, and this one, like I said, fits me pretty good. You want to make sure it's pretty clean. This particular armature does have a little clay on it in spots. Man, this one has seen some miles. I tell you, this particular armature is probably made well over 100 masks or more. But you're going to want one of these. That's what helps a lot. Now, I'm going to kind of move these off the table so I can show you the other stuff. But keep in mind, these two pieces, where you can rotate it, you're definitely going to want one of these. Gotta have it. Okay, some of the other stuff you're going to want. Well, first off, you're going to want a gallon of latex from Engineer Guy. Now, the other bucket that you see there in frame, that also has latex in it. I buy mine by a 5-gallon bucket at Engineer Guy. But if you go and this is like your first time, you can buy a gallon, and it comes like in a milk style. Well, it's not quite a milk carton. It's a gallon jug. But you're probably going to want to put it in a small bucket. Engineer Guy has these small buckets as well, just a plain empty bucket like you get at Home Depot, but these are gallon buckets. But you're going to need a gallon of latex. Now, just to, I guess, if you've never seen latex, it's white, as you can see. It's liquid, smells like cat urine, frankly, due to all the ammonia that's in it. And if it ever gets a little too thick for you, you can always thin it down with ammonia. Try to keep that in mind as well. I know if you ever try to use real paint brushes when you're painting it, that you'll definitely want to use ammonia to try to thin your paint, clean your paintbrush up. But I really don't recommend trying to paint these types of masks with a paint brush, because the latex mask paint that I'm going to tell you to use will tear up a paintbrush like it ain't nobody's business. You're better off using a Q-tip, frankly, just so it's disposable. But otherwise, so you need the turntable, makes things easier. You need an armature to proceed from there, because you got to have something to do all of this on. Now, your next phase is you're going to want some spray adhesive. Now, this is what most folks would use to put in like a headliner in a car, but you would want some of this as well. You're going to want a box of pantyhose. Now, these don't have to be the high-end pantyhose. As a matter of fact, these here I think came from Dollar General. There's 2 pair in this pack, and I think I paid $2 for this pack. So basically, it's $1 per pair. But you're going to want some pantyhose, queen size, preferably. It doesn't really matter the color, beige, gray, black. These happen to be beige, but you definitely want the queen size, because otherwise it won't really fit over your head. But so latex, spray adhesive, pantyhose. I find that you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. I mean, when a gallon of latex at Engineer Guy is $40, you want to try to make it last as long as you can, rather than just pouring it over it. I find that if you buy a few of these sponges at Home Depot, and then take a pair of scissors, and I can't stress, a good pair of large shears and a small pair of like cuticle scissors. You're going to need these later on when it comes to the trimming process. But either way, these are going to be tools that you're going to need. I'm going to go ahead and set these aside. But I would take the large shears and actually take this sponge, the big sponge here, and cut it down into smaller blocks. Okay? With the small blocks, you can simply dip it in the latex and sponge it on where you need it during the process I'm going to show you over the next series of videos. But that's what you're going to see me picking up, is this sponge that's been trimmed down. Get that out of my way. All right. Now, we've covered everything else that you're going to need. Above and beyond that, you're going to want a ball cap. I think it helps to make the top of the head and all look a lot better. However, like I said, you can buy these at Engineer Guy. You can get them at North Costco. I make my own, but man, that's a video all in of itself, how to make ball caps. Maybe in the future I'll get around to that. But you're going to want a ball cap. and you're going to want a facial prosthetic. This particular facial prosthetic is more or less, it's a witch. So, yeah, go with that. Now, when this mask is done, it will be a clown. So I'm also going to be forming up a large round nose for this guy, but if it'll be done with I'll wrap some cotton batting around a ping pong ball to get that formed shape of a big round nose. Now, the main reason why it all works with an armature and latex in general is because latex is a particular rubber that tends to want to remember its shape. So when you put it on any type of cloth, like cotton batting, for example, when I make this nose and I put it over the ping pong ball, which I haven't even done that yet, but when I get that far and it cures, once it dries, needless to say, it retains that shape. So when you go to apply it to the mask, it'll always have a nice round ping pong ball-y shape like a clown would have, although it'll be on a kind of a demonic looking face, don't you agree? Now, these are great. This is just a slip latex prosthetic. You can get the foam rubber latex ones that move even better than these. Very lifelike, as a matter of fact. And again, go back to Drop Dead Productions. Norcosco, I think, even has some. But these are the things you're going to need to build this mask. So, just a quick rundown again. Rotating turntable, an armature, spray adhesive, pantyhose, gallon of latex, sponges, bald cap, prosthetic. Now, because this is going to be a clown, I also happen to have some multicolored hair here. Now, we'll get into that. That'll be part of the process. I'll show you how to do a little hair laying and that kind of thing. But that's later on. That'll be much further on in the videos. And but nonetheless, it is an item that you're going to need. So now that that's been addressed, these items, like Monster Makers, they make the pre-mixed paint. Now, Monster Maker, this is white Monster Makers. I like to buy it pre-mixed in most cases, simply because it saves me some headache of trying to mix it up myself, excuse me. And but you can get balloon latex, or for that matter, get you a gallon of latex, thin it down with ammonia to the point that it's practically like water, and then at that point you would mix your latex mask colorants with it and proceed to make your own paint. And you can do all that in Engineer Guy. But yeah, see, it's a lot of technical chemistry, isn't it? But making masks, a lot of it is chemistry. But this is Monster Maker's white, and I highly recommend their paints, simply because once you apply their paints, they adhere very, very well. And they also sell another product called Perma-Wet, which gives them a nice sheen, and it also protects the latex paint, because after all, latex has a tendency of sticking to itself once it's dried, especially if you don't put any type of coating on it. Well, if you're shooting this paint on raw latex, obviously it bonds fantastically. But then when you're trying to get this mask off the armature, it'll stick to itself. That's why you want the Perma-Wet. Now, the Perma-Wet, again, it's Monster Makers. It looks like white liquid, but when it dries clear, and it is flexible. But it seals the masks. I highly recommend those products. I can't tell you enough. I love their stuff. Now, going back to that painting, and again, this will be a whole nother video, but we're trying to cover the things you need to make these masks. At this juncture, we've covered most everything. I will use contact cement, by the way, if you want to get some of that to apply the hair. But at this point, we've covered everything that you're going to need to make the mask. Now you're probably going to want to paint the mask. And I've discussed the type of paint I use. Now, many people ask, well, what type of mediums do you use? Well, sometimes, instead of using a paintbrush, I will use a Q-tip or any other brush-like apparatus, if you will, to apply paint. Other times, I'll use something as simple as a toothpick, depending on how fine a line I'm trying to get on something. But at the same time, don't be afraid to use this kind of sponge if you're looking for a particular texture. You've got this type of sponge here. Lots of folks use these for makeup for various reasons, do like abrasions and that kind of thing. But I even put latex paint on these and to put a particular texture on my masks. Otherwise, I mean, I mentioned toothpicks, but I mean, like, this is a piece of foaming, like the craft foam you get at Michael's. Just a scrap. It was laying here in my studio. I picked up my shears, trimmed it down nice to a nice point where it was like like a hair to get the really thin lines. So anything that'll get those thin lines that's disposable is great. Because, like I said, a true paintbrush, you're just wasting it because the latex will just cure on it. And yeah. Now, I also use an airbrush. You're going to get really nice effects with an airbrush. Obviously, there's a compressor here underneath the table. But nonetheless, and I know that not everybody's a talented airbrush artist. That all I can say with that is it comes with time. I've been doing this 14 years. And I think at this juncture, that's probably what I'm best known for is my paint jobs. I mean, I painted the walls in here, and it's not bad camo. But but the point is I recommend getting you an airbrush. You can find these at Michael's or Harbor Freight for like $10 a piece. I think that's their cheapest model. But this here is an actual Poshy H model. It's a single action, meaning that the paint and the air mix outside of the airbrush. Dual action, they mix inside. I like to use those for doing makeup. But on a latex mask, to keep things from, going, sorry, it says my battery's going dead. But to keep things going smoothly, I would recommend an exterior mix. You don't want it going up the interior of a dual action. So I think that pretty much covers it as far as what you're going to need. As far as all the various products from the armature, rotating turntable, pantyhose, latex, spray adhesives, sponges of various textures and stuff, but definitely the disposable type, airbrush maybe. But those are all the things that you're going to need to make the mask, okay? Prosthetics, bald caps, all of that. Now, again, right quick, I did want to show you this. I want to, here, maybe I can set it up like that, where you can get a good look at it. But again, you're just making these sock masks. This is not for those super talented folks, or at least people that claim to be. Well, I don't know. But this is the type of mask that you're looking to make. It's just, this is a prosthetic. It's a vampire prosthetic. Now, the teeth on here are plastic, and then these are prosthetic ears. Okay? I mean, normally folks would stick these to their ears and then play a hobbit or something. But again, this is really nothing more than pantyhose with latex on it, bald cap, facial prosthetic, and a nice paint job. That's what a sock mask is. And frankly, where most sock masks move with your facial expression, you can achieve some really amazing effects with them. Yeah, to put one on, you certainly want to put your hands inside, stretch out, and use your hands like a shoehorn. But once it's on, as you can see, it flexes and motivates right along with my face. And of course, you'd want to take it off the same way. It's very thin latex, and that's how you take the best care of it without having to spend all the money for the silicone versions. I hope this is going to be a help to you, especially after we peruse future videos. All right, as soon as I do those, and you do peruse them. But I hope this is a journey that I can carry you down, and I only hope that I can be a proper guide. Be sure to like it down there, and if this turns into something, maybe I'll start showing more, because I'll admit, currently I do not have the facilities to sit people down and teach. Gather your gear. Tomorrow I will start up the video, or the process rather, and I hope you enjoy. Make stuff.